In France, farmers have kicked off a new round of protests across the country. Many of them are driving their tractors at a snail's pace on French highways, causing traffic chaos. The farmers are furious over the prospect of a trade deal between the European Union and countries from the South American bloc known as Mercosur. French farmers say that deal will lead to the imports of cheaper produce, not bound to the same stringent restrictions as in France, and that will lead to unfair competition and a threat to their livelihoods. We're going to talk more about this now with Clovis Casali, who joins me on the set. Clovis, now these latest protests started last night. They're going on today. What's the situation at the moment around France?
Well, let's face it, there's not as much mobilization than in recent months, even at the end of last year. But still, there is one demonstration that took place just outside of Paris, trying to hamper traffic, prevent cars from driving freely into the French capital. That one finished, but there are around 80 demonstrations all across France, in Normandy, in the southwest, still taking place. Farmers burning tyres outside Préfecture, which are the headquarters of local authorities. Those are the kinds of demonstrations we're witnessing. It's only a first step. Even though the farmers' unions are warning they will not try to prevent French people of celebrating Christmas the way they do. They won't try to prevent French people from travelling freely to where they will around the Christmas time. As you said it, extremely angry at the Mercosur deal between the EU and South America. They say it would bring unfair competition, also bring unwanted food into Europe with not the same regulations, hormone beef, such things such as that. Our team on the ground just outside of Paris in Villacoublay met with one of these farmers this morning who explained why he is opposed to the Mercosur deal with the EU. Take a listen.
We're worried about this treaty because in France and in Europe we have production norms, and this treaty would allow imports of agricultural production, notably from South America, produced with regulations very different from ours, so it's unlawful competition.
So, Clovis, just to situate everybody, this is the continuation of a movement that began at the start of the year, and you could even argue even before then.
Absolutely. One could argue for years because it's very simple. Farmers are struggling to make ends meet. They see the price of electricity, food, everything, as we know, go up, their revenues going down. And they feel that Europe is not protecting them, French state not protecting them. And these farmers also have been complaining about too much paperwork with EU norms that are just too complicated. We're currently preparing, we've actually just finished a reporter, so our long format reports here on France 24 on the national rally, the French far right, at the gates of power. And we went to the Creuse, which is an area extremely rural, possibly the most rural part of France in the heart of the country. Well, we met with farmers there who are voting for the French far right because they're so disappointed at French politicians. They feel abandoned. What do they say? Revenue, not enough. They're saying too much paperwork. They're also saying that the Green Party, environmentalists, if you will, are just making their lives too hard, and that we're now in a situation, if you will, where there are two visions about the farming world, about agriculture. Some farmers feel completely misunderstood, and on the other hand, you've got people, Green Party, even mainstream parties saying there should be less pesticides, more organic farming. But these farmers say they just won't make any money if that's the case, if they're not protected even more. And that's part of the report we're working on, again, on the national rally, the French far right, at the gates of power, and really benefiting from this situation. And that's why you've got so many French farmers voting now for the French far right.
Well, how has the government been responding to all of this, Clovis?
Well, it's interesting because French President Emmanuel Macron is always criticized during these demonstrations across France. The farmers accusing him of doing nothing to prevent these free trade agreements. And it's true. President Macron is very much an advocate of free trade. He believes in the rule of the market. But on this point in particular, on the Mercosur deal, he has tried to oppose it. He said, at least publicly, he does not want France to sign this deal if it continues to be unfavorable to the French farmers. And it has to be said, when you look at the political stage, all parties practically are against this deal. French people, according to polls, overwhelmingly support the farmers in this struggle. So the French government, the agricultural minister also saying, we won't sign this deal between the EU and Mercosur if it stays the way it is, and if it still is unfavoring the French farmers. The problem is, what can they do? It's an EU deal, so President Macron needs allies. And we're not talking of small populations, small countries. We're talking about the support of major EU heavyweights. Spain, maybe. Germany, problem is, they support this deal. So President Macron, isolated more than ever on the European stage, needs to get allies. And that's why also we've got these demonstrations to try to put pressure on the French president.
All right, Clovis, thanks for that. France 24's Clovis Casali. We've got our business editor, Charles Pellegrin, who's with us on the set as well. Charles, you're going to give us our number of the day. What is it?
That's right, and it's related to this Mercosur trade deal. That number is 99,000, as in 99,000 tons. That's how much beef could be imported to the EU from the Mercosur trade bloc in South America, with a 7.5% tax under a trade agreement reached back in 2019, but still not formally signed. The quota was put in place to assuage concerns from European farmers that the common market would suddenly be flooded by South American beef that benefits from lower labor costs and from looser health and environmental regulations. But looking at the protests taking place in France against this deal this Monday, it's looking like that quota wasn't enough to alleviate those fears, at least in France. Tune in at 1:15 p.m. Paris time for more on what this EU-Mercosur trade deal actually entails and why French farmers vehemently oppose it.
All right, Charles, thank you so much for that.